I was just paddling home like I always do, sun getting low over Willowbrook Lake, when Karen stood on the dock in heels and a power blazer and yelled across the water, "I'm the boss around here." Like she was laying claim to the entire lake with her voice alone. Now, I didn't yell back. I didn't need to. I just kept paddling toward the cabin my grandfather built 50 years ago, the one my family's owned longer than the HOAs even existed. But yeah, she called the cops on me anyway, accused me of trespassing on community property, even though the deed's been in my name since Grandpa passed. You ever have that moment where you realize someone's playing the wrong game with the wrong person? That was mine. Because what Karen didn't know was that tucked away beneath my cabin floorboards was a contract she never bothered to read, and it had teeth. 3 days later, every fishing event, sponsorship, and lake development plan she had vanished. Just poof. No more tourism project, no more HOA press releases. Because I signed one document, and I signed it in the exact spot they'd feared I ever would. Now, let me back up a second. I'm Ethan Caldwell. I work freelance in software cybersecurity mostly, which basically means I sit in front of a lot of screens and don't talk to people unless I have to. The cabin Grandpa left me is my escape. Peaceful, quiet, set on this little peninsula where the water's clearer than most people's intentions. He taught me to fish here, taught me to listen to the woods, told me the lake would always take care of us if we took care of it first. So when I rode up to shore that day and saw 50 people packed onto the dock for some surprise community meeting that I wasn't invited to, my gut twisted. Karen Petton was in her element, flashing smile, giant laminated poster behind her that said Willowbrook Tourism Development, $500,000 projection, and a speech that sounded like it had been written by someone who thought the lake was a spreadsheet. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "this contract is the future." And she had them nodding like bobbleheads while she laid out plans to chemically adjust the lake water. Environmental water optimization, she called it, to support corporate fishing operations. I was still in my kayak, 30 yards out, listening, and when she locked eyes with me, it was like a switch flipped. That sales pitch turned into a full-blown takedown. "Speaking of interference," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "there's the gentleman who thinks his personal cabin is exempt from community progress." Yeah. She meant me. She called the sheriff while I was still floating, told them I was a threat to HOA authority, and by the time I made it to my dock, the red and blue lights were already bouncing off the water. But here's where things turn. See, while Karen was busy spinning her power play, she didn't know about the chest in my cabin, the one Grandpa told me only to open if someone tries to take the lake. Inside were contracts dated back to the 70s, signed with the county, granting Grandpa and now me exclusive commercial authority over Willowbrook Lake. Not just fishing rights, but tourism, rentals, events, everything. The HOA couldn't approve a canoe rental without our signature. So I scanned the documents, sent a email to the HOA board, and attached copies of the contract. I wasn't angry. I was just focused. Like someone who'd been poked too many times and finally stood up. At 7 a.m. The next morning, that email landed in Karen's inbox, and by 8:30, she was back on the dock, this time with a camera crew and a lawyer in tow. She painted me as a radical. Said my septic system was outdated, polluting the lake. Told people I was blocking environmental reform. But then, right when I thought I might actually lose the crowd, someone spoke up, a guy named Jake Morrison, younger guy, kind of quiet, always riding his bike past my place. Turns out Jake was a grad student studying local ecosystems. Mr. Caldwell's septic system, he said, is one of the most modern in the entire county. And I've got the lab reports to prove it. You could feel the mood shift suddenly. People weren't so sure about Karen's version anymore. Then Jake dropped the kicker, the chemical treatments Karen approved. They were spiking phosphate levels, which leads to algae blooms and ecosystem collapse. That's when I remembered something else, something buried deeper in the chest. A report from 1995 with the name Patton Construction at the top. That name stuck with me. I dug into it with Jake's help, and we uncovered the twist. Karen wasn't just some HOA president with control issues. She was the daughter of Robert Patton, the developer who went missing in '95 after allegedly embezzling $2 million in community development funds. And she wasn't building a fishing empire, she was looking for the money. See, Grandpa had a map. Marked a spot in the lake with a single note, AP 11/95 sealed. So Jake and I suited up with old scuba gear and Dove. And yeah, we found it. A concrete vault, locked tight. Inside. Cash, lot of it. But more than that, there were documents. A tape. A handwritten will. Robert Patton hadn't stolen the money for himself. He was trying to expose a corruption network in the city. When he realized how deep it ran, he vanished to protect the evidence. The vault was his insurance policy. And he left it with instructions for Karen to use the funds to fix what had been broken. Not bury it. But Karen had done the opposite. She'd spent 5 years searching, scheming, spinning lies. She could have told the truth. She could have been the hero. But instead, she tried to rewrite the story and erase everyone who got in her way. The next day, we played the tape at a public meeting. The whole town heard Robert's voice. Heard him say he wasn't running, was protecting them. Heard him beg his daughter to do the right thing. Karen was sitting in the front row, stone silent, eyes wide, hands trembling. You could see the exact second she realized the game was over. She was arrested that afternoon. Now, 3 months later, the lake's clean again. The fishing program's been replaced by a community-run effort that prioritizes sustainability. Jake's now our environmental coordinator. And the Patton money. It went to rebuild the community center, restore lake protections, and reimburse families who were overcharged for decades. Karen, serving 3 years, might get out sooner for cooperating. She wrote me a letter from prison, said she's studying environmental law now, wants to make it right when she gets out. I hope she means it. I really do. But every time I paddle out at sunset, I think about that day she stood on the dock and screamed, "I'm the boss around here." And I smile. Because now, we all know she never was. So let me ask you something. Was Karen a villain or just someone crushed by guilt, trying to fix it the wrong way? You think redemption's possible after all that? Or are some legacies too broken to fix? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm listening.